Hi Gemini, welcome to mid-October. Where's the reading? What are you doing? I was waiting for today. Your luck turns around today, but we'll get to that. First, we're going to talk about the title of the reading. The reading is called Chutes and Ladders. What's required of you? What's made the past 2 weeks perhaps difficult is a system of trial and error that is designed to teach you what you do that helps you spiral up ladders and what you do that slides you all the way back down to the beginning. Chutes. The past 2 weeks have not been kind when it comes to knowing your limits. Satisfaction and disappointments weigh heavy on the mind when it comes to love. Venus, Mars, Saturn, grand water trine. Venus is in Scorpio. So the way a Gemini rising interprets Venus in Scorpio is, where have I been playing it too small? You know the way a Scorpio loves a Gemini? They think that we're the most dynamic thing they've ever seen. Why don't we love ourselves that way? Why don't we love ourselves the way Scorpios love themselves? Without question. You see how long I've been shuffling, right? Venus. Then there's Mars. Mars in Cancer. Gemini rising, that's your second house. Work for money. Is it time for our luck to turn around when it comes to love and money? According to the astrology, it's today. And if you think about the last 2 weeks, it's been about limitations, right? Mars in Cancer says, cool, that's your morning habit, that's your morning routine, that's what you eat before you go to bed, you're falling asleep with your makeup on. And so you may have found yourself really cleaning out the corners and fixing your routines, perhaps even judging yourselves a little bit too harshly. But really, anything that may have seemed like constraint or a limitation, any truth that was pushed too clearly into your face about how your demise or your success is really in your own hands, all of that was preparing yourself for a big question that comes along with a big opportunity. How committed are you to yourself? There is a commitment offered here. It doesn't have to be love. Something is offered to you that requires you to be a certain version of yourself. And that version of yourself is not shy about their weaknesses. They're also not held back by their secrets. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter what it's been so far. This opportunity doesn't require you to bring your resume and then adhere to who you've been. This opportunity understands that you are a dynamic, ever-evolving person, and that just by acknowledging and absorbing back into yourself the parts that you push into exile, you can become the person who is so complete in their knowing of themselves, in their commitment to themselves, in their belief in themselves, that the opportunity is a no-brainer. But if you have found that it's really easy to commit to other people, But it's so very hard to commit to your own growth. It's so very hard to commit to your own well-being. It's so very hard to commit to your own, to the way that you should be treated. Then baby steps, and baby steps are, wonky. They don't really know what they're doing. It's a lot of falling down and can't have a lot of pride about that. The sadness around it is simply, my God, have I not been committed to myself? But I think I'm dope. This has nothing to do with you thinking that you're great. We know you're great. You know you're great. It's not about that. The deeper question, the one that hurts, is, even though you're so great, like, where you been? Why have you been here, there, and everywhere dealing with everything except the things that you need? The way that I put it in the recent episode of the pod is, it's sitting down and scanning the fucking QR code on the FedEx package that's still waiting to be delivered. It's getting back into your Spotify account that you've been locked out of for, the better part of 6 months, but you're gonna have to, be on the phone with customer service or whatever forever. It's paying attention to the small instances of neglect that the past 2 weeks have insisted on pointing out to you. So you may have found yourself doing like small pedantic things and being like, why am I doing this when I have important stuff to do? Why am I doing this? Why am I cleaning the drawers and lining them, instead of doing my work? What the fuck is going on? It's because commitment requires a lot, right? But I think what it requires above everything else is an honesty. And if we are on this journey of renewing our vows to ourselves, then we have to be honest. And when we're honest, we do have this laser-like ability to find all the flaws, find all the cut corners. When we turn that laser focus on ourselves, yeah, you're going to be cleaning out the corners of drawers at 3 a.m. You can't mind the mess anymore, but the mess is indicative of the neglect. And that's what this conversation is really about. Those chutes and ladders have everything to do with neglect. Wherever self-neglect still reigns in your life, you find that aspect of your life becoming a mudslide, and you can't find your footing. And wherever you, no matter how unsure you are, wherever you find yourself committing to yourself, paying attention to yourself, putting yourself first, but like really putting yourself first, not just your mind. Huge distinction, not just your mind, yourself, your whole self. Your habits change, your routines change, your workout, the way you look at working out changes, the way you look at food changes, the way you look at mess changes. And one of the most painful aspects of this is a sort of sorrow that builds up when you realize that all of these things could have been implemented, in childhood or in high school, whatever. When you were a child, you could have been taught these things. You could have been raised this way. The strange thing about neglect is that when you're not neglected anymore, it hurts. It's good for you, but it hurts so bad, it's almost easier to neglect yourself. One of the things I have written here is in the Doors movie, there's a segment where Patricia Neely, she's like the girl he marries, that Jim Morrison marries. She's apparently, like in real life, a witch, right? And in the movie, she's quoted as saying, death doesn't end love. Love doesn't end with death, only with neglect. And I think even though her part of the movie is really just a vehicle to have some more exposition on Jim Morrison, there was something about that rang so true to me, and it's always just stayed in the back of my head because it's true. Someone dying doesn't at all preclude them from your love. Most instances, you love them more. Neglect in many ways is so much more harmful than the death of someone you're connected to, because it's a purposeful death. It's a it's a willful disconnect, But the weirdest thing about people who neglect you is that they generally ask a lot from you as well. So it's not the same as being ignored, and I think that we can conflate the two. It's not about being ignored. It's about, in many cases, excuse me, it's about being used and having your needs unmet simultaneously. It's about being drained out. Now, when you have this opportunity come to you, you have to be honest about how much you can do, and you should be honest about where you're coming from. There is work here that is very personal and very private, and you may feel like you can't do both these things. You can't avail a great opportunity and still be doing this kind of heavy work behind the scenes, but you can. Because the work you're doing, the entire theme of the next 30, 40 days is dealing with the after effects of neglect. First of all, coming to the realization that you've been neglected. Then there's the realization that you allowed yourself to be neglected. Then there's the realization that you allowed the neglect because it's something that you picked up as being normal or even perhaps considered love in childhood. Then you realize that you were calling like a magnet to yourself people who would for absolutely sure neglect you because that's what you see as love. And this is a painful process. And if someone is offering you something tantamount to this while you're going through this process, it's very easy to feel like, oh my God, I'm going to fuck this up. You're not going to fuck this up. You're not going to fuck this up. You're not going to fuck anything up. Okay, I'm just going to talk to you. Okay? We have some cards. We'll do more cards. We can do more cards while I talk to you, but one of the things that is very hard to deal with right now is the realization that when you have been neglected, you are also neglectful, not just of yourself. Although this is the realization that really kicks everything off and kicks off like your love journey here, because it's going to get soft. It's going to get easier. But that's just a pill you're going to have to swallow first. When we have been neglected, we become neglectful. And so as you commit to yourself, as you pay more attention to yourself, as you put not just your mind, but your mind and your body and your mental health first, you will realize as a side effect that you have become a better friend, a better parent, a better child to your parents, a better partner. Because when we're ignoring our own basic emotional needs, there's no way that we can fill somebody else's. We can do a lot of patching up. We do a lot of changing the dressing on wounds that we inflicted. That's not love. That's not love. Okay, so big realizations. And the Sun and Jupiter are there to remind you when you become, overcome with guilt. Oh my God, how much have I taken from how many people? How many people have I been neglected? I haven't just been stealing from myself. Within just a week from now, the Sun and Jupiter just shine on you. And and you feel deep in your heart how important people are to you. And you realize that even though you haven't been all the way there, that they really care about you too. I'm telling you, it's about to get very soft. I know it's been rough, it's been abrasive, but the exfoliation is over. Now comes the serums, you know? And you have such a sharp mind. Venus moves into Sagittarius, Gemini rising. That's in your relationship house there. Then Gemini sun right across from you. Venus sits there and says, okay, all these little small things that are wrong, iron them out. Every small crease, iron it out. Every small thing, use all this intellect, use all this drive, use all this energy, all these ideas, and smooth out your life. Okay? You want to be more impressive, you want to be more appealing, and this is what appeals to you, this is what impresses you. And to be engaged in a process of you becoming more impressive and more appealing to you, final character unlocked type of shit, final form unlocked type of shit. Like this is our happy place. I think you know it. And it's a wonderful place to run to and commit to when we've done the work of loving ourselves, putting ourselves first, getting into great routines, not letting anyone disturb those routines. Hello. Then this is like a wonderful place to be. The only time this is hard for us is when we use it as an escape. This can be the ambition and drive that you use to ignore how neglectful you are of yourself, ignore how little commitment you have to yourself, or it can be the fuel and the fire that you run to, free of mind, free of worry, free of anxiety and concern of self. When you give to yourself, that anxiety that runs us, it calms down. Certain people around you are going to have to get used to that. People who play that game of neglecting you and then showing up, they're not going to like what you change into. Well, let's do the cross-watcher bit. This is time. It's time. Let's do the cross-watcher bit because we're talking about Venus and Sag. Listen, first of all, let's address the cards. If you are a Pisces, you're in luck. You're in luck. This Gemini that's been like ghosting you, lying to you, whatever the fuck they've been doing, because their mind is changing, they're beginning to understand how good you are for them and how good you've been to them. So now if you, Gemini, are dealing with a Pisces, you're really wanting to reach out, you're really wanting to talk things through, you're seeing things from a different perspective, and they're open to you talking to them, so go for it. Now for the rest of you cross-watchers, if you're in a relationship with a Gemini situationship, you're trying to get them to fucking text you or call you back and they won't, whatever it is, this is your segment, which is why you're watching this video. This is for you. It's a new thing we started doing. I think it's very possible to get into something really serious with a Gemini when they're in this season of coming home to themselves. I think it's really easy to get into the relationship with them when they uncharacteristically ask for help. Venus in Sagittarius makes Geminis ask for help. And we don't do that. And it especially makes us ask for help from people that we have some sort of romantic connection to. So if you really want to be there and you really want to make it work, either offer yourself as that help or wait for them to contact you because they need your help. If you're just running after a Gemini because you don't know what else to do because they were so into you and now they don't seem into you at all, and you don't know, you don't really know what's happened, you can't put your finger on it, you are starting to think that maybe you did something wrong. No, that's a Gemini who hasn't quite come to terms yet with how they use neglect as a weapon against you and against themselves. So that is a realization that's about to hit them if it hasn't already hit them. If I were you, I would play the long game and I would wait for them to completely absorb this realization and realize how much of a dickhead they are, and then let them reach out to you. And when they do, feign prescience about the situation. Oh, I knew you were at some point going to come to your senses. I knew, do all that, rub it in their face. It doesn't matter. They deserve it. We deserve it. But the transformation is sincere. And that might be, a difficult truth to swallow, because a Gemini is almost easier to handle when they're a mischievous, chaotic whirlwind that comes through. A Gemini who's focused, committed, and down for the commitment is, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's someone that you can realistically build a life with or take over a country with. I mean, it's a lot. And it's worth it. But only if they've realized these things, which is what makes late October until mid-November just amazing, for getting into a relationship with them, being with us, telling us you love us, helping us, whatever you want to do, because that coming home to ourselves and the really bumpy, painful journey that we're on right now in the process of coming home to ourselves, it's just so fun to be with someone who's gone through that process, because the relationship is no longer about your ego or their ego or hurt feelings or wrong words or the little things that are abrasive and kind of, the sharp edges that we all have that are very difficult to sand down when we're together. When you're with someone who is giving themselves everything they need, it's easy to have a relationship based on factors that are not personal. It's about going out, it's about traveling, it's about seeing new things, it's about getting interested in a niche, art, wine, whatever you're into. But it becomes something less personal, more abstract, in the most delicious way that we all love so much. And it's because that commitment part is just, it's settled. We are not capable of that level of commitment, that depth of commitment that Venus in Sagittarius is like, I'm going to teach you how to fucking do this, and it might hurt a little bit, because the first thing you're going to realize is that you haven't been loved. Okay. And here's some venom just to what the fuck? But once you get past that, and commitment isn't some ghostly scepter somewhere in the future of something I'm going to have to get tied down. When you're so committed to yourself and so unafraid of that commitment and what it means, you're sticking to your stuff even if you don't want to, then committing to another person turns into such a fun adventure, because it's no longer about infidelity. And that, for so long in a Gemini's life is simultaneous, it's just a simile for having fun, because that commitment, because that neglect issue, because that attachment issue is just so prevalent. We need so much when we're children, and we hardly ever get it. And so so many of us are still, in that suckling stage that we never were weaned out of. Nobody paid attention. It's like those kittens that are now cats, like big ass cats, and they still suck on their paws because they were never, they were removed too early, didn't get to nurse enough. So we've had a tough go of it. But once that shit settles, even though it's been hard for a few weeks, yeah, and it's been hard to get into routines, and it's been hard to see yourself slip from those routines and realize how not committed you are to yourself. It's been hard. The whole process has just been difficult, but eye-opening and so necessary. And it ultimately makes you such a good partner, so much better of a friend, so much better of a parent, so much better of a sibling. Any of the things that you are, you get better at when you realize that this is no longer about what happened, and it's no longer about blame, and it's no longer about thrills. It's not about thrills. Having a solid hour-long yoga, routine that you do every day. That's not about thrills. There's nothing thrilling about that. But 6 months from now, when you get dressed to go out and you don't have to worry about anything and you just pick up any fucking thing and put it on and you look bomb and you're walking out the door, thrills. So we're beginning to see how commitment in the moment can be difficult and trying and require a lot. But long term, the joy, the fulfillment, the productivity, and the thrills that you get are so much better, safer, but also just better. They feel better. They feel good without consequence, I think we're also just seeing what's happening around us, and we don't want to be associated with this sort of nasty life anymore, We've just been running around doing shit because, but we also don't want to be associated with monstrous behavior, right? So it's a season of looking in the mirror and seeing something that needs a lot of work. And you can get stuck in that and just keep looking in the mirror and going, oh God, I need a lot of work. Or you can get to work. Probably easier now that our luck turns today, inshallah. Probably easier now. But nonetheless, chutes and ladders. And what's at the top there? I don't know, is there a chutes and ladders Zelda hybrid? What's at the top is you, bitch. Listen to a song for me. It's Room at the Top of the World by Tom Petty. It's a B-side of some album. I found it on Napster or some shit a long time ago. The first time I listened to that song, when you don't even know you're gonna cry, so the tears are super hot because you didn't have time to work yourself up. I was just streaming tears the first time I heard it. Because it's such an accurate description of how it feels when you just feel good. When you just feel good. And we run the gamut. We have felt so much. We have felt so much. But how about just feeling good? I would really like that, and I think you would too. Or maybe Mars and Cancer is just getting to us, And there's nothing wrong with that. Have I told you lately? Have I told you lately how much I love you? Someone commented under the Sagittarius video and said, oh my God, you were feeling really sick. And then, do you think you were just picking up on what was going on with the weather? I think so. But if you've had it pretty hard the past few weeks, I'm sorry. I've felt it physically. Just like being car sick, almost. Ooh, my stomach just growled thinking about it. My mirror neurons be going crazy, bro. But mark it in your calendar. Feel it as you finish up this video. We'll talk more about this in the extended. I actually want to teach you a crystal cross meditation that I think you'll really like, but we'll do it in the extended. If you have any hesitation or fear around what it feels like to feel good, if you need to keep the TV on when you sleep type of thing, it's because you're afraid. But you don't have to be anymore because you have yourself. You just have to stop abandoning yourself. And that realization being thrown in your face in 10 million different ways has probably not been pleasant. I love you. We have a lot to talk about in terms of career and money, and we have to talk about Jupiter retrograde, which is now, and how it applies to your health because it's in our first house. So Gemini rising is in your first house. and there's a lot there that we need to talk about.